At this point, a decent number of y'all probably know me for my coverage of various AI things, especially after the Nano Banana 2 video I just put out a few days ago. Your thoughts are probably that I'm all in on all this AI stuff and I want to replace everything with AI. Not only is that not true, there's actually a handful of types of AI that I really just don't vibe with that much. In particular, media generation. But wait, didn't you really like Nano Banana Pro? Aren't you selling it in your own service? Aren't you being a super hypocritical person by saying this? I want you guys to hear me out because I have a lot of feelings about this. Most of y'all probably know me for code, but that's not my only degree. I'm actually really into music. I have been my whole life. I have a degree in audio engineering. It's the thing I care a lot about. I have lots of friends who are in music, almost as many as are in tech, and I spend a lot of time between these spaces. Which is why seeing the valuation for Suno, the AI music generator, deeply hurt me. $2.45 billion valuation in an industry that's lucky to clear $30 billion a year is insane. This company is worth as much as a tenth of the music industry. What? I've been getting in arguments about this on Twitter because it's a thing I care about a lot. And it's not just music gen. There are similar issues with image gen, video gen, and all of the attempts to do media stuff as a whole right now. And none of it really feels viable or valuable. There's a lot of layers to my feelings here, and they are admittedly quite complex. I have so much to say here about how money moves in the art world and how creation happens in the first place. But sadly, talking about art's the only thing that pays less than making art, so we do need to take a quick break for today's sponsor. It's never been easier to make the best possible UI you can imagine. The catch is, how do you imagine it? If you're not creative enough or have the experience to make a good design, it's really hard to get right. Thankfully, there are millions of apps and screens and pieces of software that are already made for us to reference, but how do you find the right one for inspiration? It's really annoying going through Google Images trying to find the best possible screenshot to use as a mock for the thing that you're building. Unless you're using today's sponsor, Mobbin. These guys are the best source for real-world inspiration, and if you've noticed my UIs looking better lately, they're pretty much the only reason why. Okay, the new models being better design helps, but Mobbin helps a hell of a lot more. When they first hit me up about sponsorship, I was curious, so I signed up, and my original ad with them is my organic reaction to just being blown away with how useful it is. Now I use it almost always when I'm building UI, especially on iOS, but even on web projects too. Let's say I want to make a nice looking login screen. We can look at fabrics or add-a-lines or any other even somewhat relevant reference. Let's say we want something more specific to our category. Like we want something for business websites. Here we have dubs, sign-in page, ClickUps, intercoms, and more. Let's say we don't want a login page. We actually want, a comment section. Here are some business comment sections. Actually really useful because comments mean something very different in the business world than they mean on, YouTube, Twitter, anything like that. And here we can see exactly how comments look on Trello. Now, if you want to use this, you can save the image or click copy or just Control-C, Command-C, whichever OS you're on. You're a designer, you're probably on a Mac, so Command-C. Hop over to your vibe coding tool of choice, Command-V, say make it look like this, and you're done. It's never been easier to get inspiration from other designs. Even if you're not trying to vibe code this out and you're just looking for references, or you're spending your days in Figma and you're trying to find some inspiration, Mobbin's an insane value. It's only $10 a month per user. The amount of time it saved me alone and the amount of improvement to the quality of my user experiences and my UIs is worth way more than that. If you don't believe me, go try it out for yourself at soydev.link/Mobbin. There's a bunch of layers here that I want to break down. We have different types of generation. So we have LLMs. Specifically, we have the ability to generate text with them. So essays, articles, whatever else you're imagining here. We also have the ability to generate code with them. And this part in particular is very interesting. We'll go back to that in a bit. But there's other types of media gen, the ones that we're actually here to talk about. Most of these are diffusion based, but we don't need to go into the tech behind it. That doesn't matter as much. What we do want to talk about is image gen, audio gen, and video gen. And when I say audio gen, I mean music generation primarily, but honestly, this could be split into two categories of dialogue and music. And I know it sounds kind of cringe and contradictory that I think this stuff is really cool, and I think all this stuff is really cringe, especially when I've been using image gen stuff more and starting to plug it as part of my product. But I have reasons, and I haven't done a great job articulating those. I touched on it a little bit in my previous video where I was talking about PewDiePie's AI takes. It was a good opportunity to dive in, but I just gave a surface level why I think this way. I haven't done a proper deep dive just yet. The Oatmeal also made an awesome comic about AI art and how he feels about it. I think it's one of the most neutral and reasonable takes I've seen from an artist about AI stuff. I'll leave the link in the description if you want to go read this. I highly recommend it. Oatmeal even has a section about how AI art can be useful, which is going to be a really useful transition for me here because this is what I want to talk about. I believe it can be a powerful tool for dealing with the minutia of drawing, the parts of it that feel administrative, not creative. Every artist has their own minutia. For me, it's backgrounds. Most of my comics don't have them, which is why I often draw pale blobs floating in space. Eliminating backgrounds lets me focus on the part that matters to me, the comedy, the fun, the rat copter. I don't ever plan on using AI in my comics, but I see how it could let me focus on the creative essential aspects of cartooning. It's like the artist equivalent of using a spell checker. Now we're cooking with gas. This is a really key piece I want to dive in on, not just because all most AI is autocomplete on steroids, but because this idea of it being a tool in the toolbox is key. In all of these spaces, the creators that are relevant, be it a musician, be it a graphics artist, painter, be it a developer writing software, we all have our toolbox. The toolbox is full of all the different things we use. It could be our code editor like VS Code or Cursor or Vim or something like that, and then we have tools inside of it. It could be production software like FL Studio, which I just reinstalled so I can demo this here a little bit. It could be your video editing suite, like we use Final Cut for all of our videos. It could be a lot of different things, but your toolbox is usually one major piece of software and then other things that are either inside of it or alongside it. So some developers like using the terminal inside of VS Code. Other devs have a terminal outside of VS Code and they hop between the two apps. That's what I do. So the question comes down to the relationship between these AI tools that are now being created for all of these things and the relationship with existing professional tools that we already use. I'm going to talk a little bit about how AI code happened. The first major AI dev tool was Copilot. The way Copilot worked initially was with a small, kind of dumb model that would watch what you're doing in your editor and generate autocomplete that was based on what you were just doing and where the cursor is in your file. So you could write a comment like, do a BFS, func, and as soon as you start typing the word function, it could realize what you're about to do and write the autocomplete for it. And this was awesome because Copilot existed inside of our toolbox. So if our toolbox is primarily VS Code, and there's this new AI tool that we can use called Copilot, Copilot is inside of our tools. It's inside of VS Code. It's not trying to replace it. It's not trying to rethink it. It's trying to augment it and make certain tedious tasks easier for us to do as developers. And as this became a thing, the model started to get better. Microsoft and OpenAI started getting more data from people using Copilot. And then the flywheel really started going. And the result was that the models got really good at code. And now we have more and more tools that can exist outside of our existing toolbox. I would argue something like Cursor still fits here. Even if it is replacing VS Code, it's still based in VS Code. It still has the whole VS Code ecosystem. Cursor, Windsurf, even Anti-Gravity, the new Google IDE, they're all different harnesses for the same set of tools. They're not replacing our toolbox. They are a new flavor of the toolbox that has the same tools inside of it alongside some new interesting pieces. So now I want to imagine a different timeline. Imagine Copilot was not the first AI tool that we saw as developers. Imagine something else was. Imagine Lovable was the first AI dev tool. And imagine Lovable didn't let you see the code or link with GitHub at all. Lovable wouldn't be a tool augmenting the way that we write code. Lovable would be a replacement for our toolbox. So instead of VS Code having Lovable inside of it, or Lovable being a new alternative to VS Code with the same stuff inside of it, Lovable exists. Therefore, we don't need our toolbox anymore. Now, if you're a real developer, you're just going to look at this and laugh. Especially if you remember how bad these models were initially. Like, LOL, there's no world in which I can write code without looking at the code. That's just silly. Why would anyone want to do this? Now let's go a step further. Let's say that the creators of Lovable weren't actually devs. Imagine that the people who made Lovable sat down one day as friends who were like, I don't know, into football or something. And they're like, hey guys, It'd be really cool if we could build an app for managing our football stuff. It's a shame none of us know how to code. Let's try. Oh, learning to code is hard. There would be so many coders if it was easier to learn how to code. We should fix that. And then they went and made Lovable, a rejection of all existing tools and standards and industry and successful people in the space. I think we all can predict what would happen there. We would make fun of them. Developers would laugh at this. Why are all these people who don't know shit about software showing up saying that what we do is too hard, so they're going to make it way easier when they don't understand it in the first place? We would laugh at them. That would be absurd. What if I told you this is exactly what all the media gen companies are doing? The people who worked on Nano Banana have not been using Photoshop for 15 years. The people who are working at Suno have not been producing, mixing, and mastering music their whole lives. And I promise you, the people who are doing Sora over at OpenAI don't understand their way around a video editor particularly well. That's why they want to replace our toolboxes. You don't come to the conclusion that the toolbox is too hard, we should throw it out, unless you don't understand it. And if your goal is to replace the toolbox, there's a very good chance you don't understand that toolbox at all. And that's what I've seen the most from the companies building these things. They don't understand how we build. They don't understand how we create. They don't understand the ins and outs of what we're doing and how we do it. There are differences in how these things practically apply when you're doing media gen. For example, I do thumbnails that have a lot of assets in them. Similar to what Oatmeal said, some of these things are tedious and I don't like doing them. We all have our own minutia, the things that we don't feel like doing. A common use case for me is fake chat interfaces. Like I want to have OpenAI and Google having a back and forth on Slack that I can use as part of a thumbnail. This is an asset that I want as part of a greater creation. It's one of the pieces of the puzzle. Similar to how I would use an LLM inside of VS Code to generate a part of what I'm working on, I can use Gemini and Nano Banana Pro to create a piece of an asset I need for something else that I'm making. It can be really useful for that type of stuff, but it has so many catches that make it way, way less useful. Basic stuff like background removal, it won't do. If you ask Nano Banana for a transparent background, it'll hallucinate the like gray-white checkerboard pattern in the background, won't even have it aligned, and now you can't really get your thing out of that image. It's not built to be useful as a piece of the puzzle. It is built to do the whole puzzle. It's built to replace the toolbox. But due to the nature of how malleable images are, you can work around it. For example, if I wanted to use this part, there's no world in which I would save and use this whole screenshot as is. What I would do is zoom in and grab just this little piece I want, and then go make the rest of the thumbnail. Grab that, hop into a real professional graphics suite. I use Affinity Photo. New thumbnail, expand this a bit, make the background the right color. Hop into the Pick Thing clone that Ben and I have been working on to rethink a lot of stuff for it. He actually built a tag system that I can use. Tags, Theo face. Grab a picture of my face. And yes, the backgrounds here are removed with AI. Paste this in. Add a shadow. Adjust this because it doesn't look quite right. It's also lower res than I would want. I'd probably go upscale this in some way. This is a flow I do often for making some of my thumbnails. Like 1 in 10-ish, I would guess, uses AI for generating a part. Because the alternative is I go spend a ton of time in Inspect Element in Slack trying to make the exact screenshot I'm trying to make. And I used to do that. It sucks. It's so not fun. The fact that these AI-generated tools can streamline this one particular annoying part for me is great. But I often still have to make a ton of changes. Like here, I hate the emoji stuff being there, so I'm going to rasterize this piece, clone it in case I don't like the changes I make. Hop it here. Delete. Delete, cut, and then same deal once more. Like I cannot tell you guys how often I find myself doing exactly what you're seeing here when working on assets for videos. There. And I probably move that today bar down as well and then move the whole thing up a little. How did you get in here, Miles? I locked you out. Move that, group. There we go. Actually, what I can do, I have this separate. Look at that. Now this is a usable thumbnail. I just had to make 3-ish minutes of changes to get it roughly where I want. And even then it's low enough res, I'm probably I probably would go do another pass if I wanted to take this more seriously. Quick cat break. Generate this, I dare you. Good boy. You're not supposed to be in here, Miles. I don't even know how you broke in. Anyways, this is an example of how I use something that exists outside of my tools, in this case, Nano Banana, and force it to fit within my needs. It would be so much better if instead of giving me this baked image, it could somehow give me layers or a Photoshop file where I can adjust things, because code is way more malleable than media. Imagine if an AI coding tool didn't ever give you the code, it would only give you the compiled binary, and you had no way to get back the source to go make changes, unless you decompiled it, reverse engineered it, and then started making those changes manually. That's how it feels to work with these media generation tools. Thankfully, images are a relatively malleable medium where I can like crop out pieces, use other tools to remove backgrounds, upscale parts, layer parts, and just deal with all of this myself. But that's not the case for music and video, at least not on the same level at all. Sorry. The cat's being extra needy right now. Like, I was helping a friend with thumbnails last night and spent at least 20 to 30 minutes cropping, cutting, chopping, upscaling, and micro adjusting some AI generated screenshots so that it could look decent. And man, it was annoying. It was still slightly easier than if I was to make everything myself. But like, the point isn't that I'm generating media so that I don't have to do the work. It's that I'm using generation to smooth out the tedious parts. And this is when AI is great as a developer. This is also when AI is great as a person who works in media. I do produce a lot of content, believe it or not, a video a day, and we do multiple thumbnails for each one. We are producing a ton of stuff. Buddy, I'm so sorry. I love you to death, but you are making my job impossible. I'm going to kick him out. Give me a sec, guys. So why is this so different from music and video? Well, those mediums just are way harder to do this type of stuff with. I can't just crop something and move it down in a video because the next frame, it'll now be wrong. And if I try to do it frame by frame and anything's off between these different frames, it is an absolute mess. There are some things within tools like DaVinci and Final Cut and now even Premiere that let you like rotoscope to remove a background from somebody. You've probably seen FaZe do this in my own intros. It's using AI, and that's cool, but that's not what people are talking about when they talk about media generation. The idea of a world where I can select myself in a video and say, change this shirt color to red, and the rest of the hour-long video is the same, but my shirt's red. None of the tools are trying to do that. They're trying to replace my editor. And this is the problem. There's almost like a scale here of how much is a tool trying to complement your toolbox versus trying to replace your toolbox. Something like Copilot, specifically the original version of Copilot that was just the autocomplete, very much falls into complementing your toolbox. Something like Nano Banana fits in between the two, in my opinion, because I can use it to complement my toolbox. I can use the images it's generating to go do things in other editors. But that's not because Nano Banana was built for this case. That's because the idea of image generation and the way images work is more malleable, so I can screw with things. Code is way easier because you can just move code around, change the order of lines, change the functions that are being called, replace a whole chunk. Code is super malleable. Images are kind of malleable. Music's a bit malleable, and video is not particularly malleable. So now we need to talk about the thing that we're all here for, Suno. Where does Suno fit in this all? Suno frustrates me. Here's the post that triggered me enough to make this video. I've been friends with Jasmine for a while, so this one came as a shock to me. I grew up singing. I sang everywhere I went. I wrote songs in my diary. I told teachers that I wanted to be a singer and a songwriter when I grew up. Wanting to be a musician in 2006 required resources that a low-income family didn't have. My parents couldn't afford to get me any instruments. They couldn't pay for music lessons. They couldn't get me into studios. A dream I had became just a memory, until now. I'm beyond proud and honored to get to work at a company that is enabling music creation for everyone. For the 13-year-old kid in their bedroom who dreams of being a musician, you can be one. For all of the professional artists, you can do more of what you love. I really wish Suno existed 20 years ago when I was a kid in elementary school, showing strangers songs I wrote with no way to produce them. But I'm really, really happy that it exists today. For all the other kids who might need it. We are still just getting started. Since I know a lot of you guys are developers, I grew up obsessed with computers. I tinkered with every app I could find, sketched website ideas in my notebook, and told teachers I wanted to be a programmer when I grew up. But wanting to be a dev in 2006 required resources that a low-income family didn't have. My parents couldn't afford a decent computer. They couldn't pay for coding classes. They couldn't send me to camps or get me mentorship. A dream I had slowly turned into just a memory, until now. Do you see the problem here? Like, if you're a developer, you know that you can code on any, even like vaguely almost decent computer. Some of the most important albums ever released were produced on crappy MacBooks from years prior using the free or pirated copies of GarageBand. You might have heard of this artist called Grimes. Her first album that included the track Oblivion kind of broke pop music at the time. What you might not know is that she produced this album in GarageBand on an old half-broken MacBook. You might have also heard of Justice, the bands who did Dance and Genesis and a couple other big dance songs back in 2007, funny enough. These were also produced in GarageBand. This is a particularly funny example because this album came out in 2007 and the tweet we just read was about 2006. No excuses. There are artists producing incredible, groundbreaking work on base-tier iPads they bought 4 years ago. And there are so many musicians putting out everything you need and more to learn how to produce music. Jane Remover is one of my recent favorite producers, and she has these incredible breakdowns showcasing exactly how she made her albums, literally opening the project files for her album and showing you how the songs were made in the software. The knowledge access has never been better. The best artists just share how they do things, and you can go look and learn and even ask questions, and many of them will respond. And the tools themselves have never been more accessible either. The fact that you can download real production software on a phone or an iPad and make actual music is incredible. And if you boil down music to what you can perform on a stage with an instrument, we have fundamental different definitions of music. Because as cool as performance is, and like I did my 15 years on piano, I get it. It's not as cool to me as the creation of unique ideas through sound. I'm much more interested in the ideas someone can communicate through sound and the vibes they can give you than how fast they can hit notes on a stage and how many lessons and years of training they went through before they performed. That's just much less interesting to me personally. And if you think that you can't be a musician because you don't have the ability to play guitar, that's like saying you can't be a programmer because you type too slow. It's just stupid. That's all it is. These tools aren't for aspiring musicians who are blocked because it's such a hard thing to get into. These tools are for unmotivated people who don't care about music that much, but think it would be cool if they could be a musician. I see this a ton on YouTube. I can't tell you how many super awkward conversations I have had with somebody. It's like, yeah, I kind of want some side income. I feel like this engineering thing's tiring. Kind of want to try YouTube. How can I make a successful YouTube channel with as little effort as possible? The first question I ask is, how much YouTube do you watch? Like, how many hours a day are you watching? Who are some of your favorite YouTube channels? And almost always the response is, I don't watch that much YouTube. I guess Mr. Beast is cool. I've seen one of your videos before. Seems like you're making a lot of money. Absurdity. Do you know why my channel's good? Because I'm a fucking degenerate. I watch way too much YouTube, and I'm not the only one. My channel manager, Ben, I met because I watched his videos and he watched mine. My editor, FaZe, also was an avid viewer of my channel and is watching YouTube constantly whenever he's working and doing other shit. If you don't love the thing, you're not going to be good at the thing. And in a field where there is more demand for people than there are people who love the thing, that's fair. Back like 4 years ago, and way beyond that, there were way more engineering roles than there were people who loved writing code, which meant it was okay to hire people who didn't love code. And it was okay to get into code even if you didn't like it that much, if your goal was to make money. That only works in a space where the median talent level can be successful. Only the top 0.1% of musicians can make a living off of their music. I have a thought experiment for you. My YouTube channel gets 2 to 3 million views a month on really long content. My average video length is 40 to 50 minutes. So I should be making pretty good ad revenue on that. There are lots of musicians who are lucky if they can squeeze out 200 to 300,000 plays a month on YouTube. So knowing I get 2.5 to 3 million on a channel that has a very technical audience that can be advertised to for a lot of money, and my views are way longer and experience more ads, how much money would you guess I'm making off of ads on YouTube? You're probably thinking a pretty big number, like 2 to 3 million plays with a developer audience. That's a lot. That's got to be a ton of money. You got to be tens, if not hundreds of thousands a month, right? My channel makes 6 to 8 grand a month on ad revenue. That's almost enough to pay my editor. It's not enough for everything else that we do. It's not enough for my manager. It's not enough for my equipment. It's not enough for the tokens I spend doing AI generation for my videos. 6 grand a month is not enough to sustain what I'm doing here. And I am doing way better numbers here than most even pretty successful musicians are doing. And those musicians can't do a sponsor spot in the middle of their song. Those musicians can't get as many ads in their videos because the videos aren't as long as my videos are. They aren't getting shit. I know a lot of artists that are way more famous than me that are making like 2-ish grand a month off of YouTube revenue and another 1 to 2 off of Spotify and other streaming platforms. There is very, very little money here. Only the absolute top people make a reasonable living in music. So if you're like, music's kind of cool, not really for me though, I'd do it if it was easier. You're not gonna survive. If you think that learning audio software or getting access to audio software is the thing preventing more musicians, you don't understand any part of this picture at all. You're so far removed from how this shit works that it's insulting. And all of these tools that people are making aren't trying to make the stuff we use easier. They're not trying to improve my experience in actual music software. They're trying to replace all of it because it's too hard. That's so dumb. That's so incredibly dumb. And when I complained about this on Twitter, the replies I got were even dumber. Love you, Jazz, but this really ain't it. Music's one of the most accessible fields to get into by far. Many of my favorite albums were produced in bedrooms on iPads. That's the difference, though. They were produced. Effort was put in by a human to create the sounds that we experienced. There is no art quite as soulless as AI music generation. This doesn't enable new artists. It enables unmotivated people who don't care about the art. I stand behind every word here. One person said that they create melodies in MIDI and they load them into Suno Studio to make them richer by prompting the AI to arrange the melody with various instruments. I don't even know how to put into words how dumb this is. If you don't know what MIDI is, it's the standard for arranging melodic data to say what note plays and when and how loud it plays. It's not saying what it should sound like, it's just saying the notes and when the notes play. I'm going to show you something funny in FL Studio, one of my favorite pieces of software ever made. Let's add in a new instrument. I don't have any of my VSTs installed because I literally just installed this before going live. I love Toxic, but let's just use Citrus. God, my keyboard skills are not where they used to be. I used to be so good at playing piano on a tool like this. Okay, some of my keys aren't working right. I'm not used to this keyboard or how that works. The point I wanted to make here is how complex it is to generate MIDI. This is a MIDI loop. I can put notes here, hit play, and now it's playing. Well, let's say I find writing and composing melodies too hard because I am a wannabe musician, not a real musician. I've mostly produced on Windows, as cringe as that is. So, check this out. I can change the way I am composing to just put chords instead of the notes. Cool. But that's still too much work. I want something easier. Let's do that. God, this program's changed so much since I last used it. I still have the old, or like a super old version installed on my desktop. I'm realizing I should probably learn the new one soon. Is it the wrench? Oh yeah, Riff Machine. Look at that. I just generated a MIDI sequence. Do you know why this is so easy to generate? Because it's just fucking math. That's all music theory is. Really basic math with 12 tones that have basic relations with each other. It's not that fucking difficult. If you think that's the flex, that these tools are actually useful because you brought the MIDI, that's like saying Lovable's a real programming tool because you brought a screenshot of a Jira ticket. I don't fucking care. That's so far removed from the reality. Like, I've been generating melodies and sequences since I was 15 years old. And you know what? That generation I just did is in the tool I'm already using. It exists within the toolbox. It's not replacing it, which is the whole problem I have with these things. None of them are helping me within my software. If someone was to create a loop generator or a sample generator so I could make unique samples to use within my music, that would be kind of cool. If somebody was to target real musicians using professional software to try and complement their work with AI and give you useful pieces to smooth out annoying stuff, that would be great. I would be super into that. But that's not how any of these companies are doing it. They're all trying to replace our software with some bullshit. Back to Jazz's story, because there's one piece here that really breaks my heart. The idea that she really wanted to be a singer and songwriter, specifically the songwriter piece. The majority of musicians, the majority of people who spend years learning an instrument and performing it, the vast majority of them don't ever write music. They are performing music written by others, because most people see music as your ability to perform, not your ability to create. And that's always irked me deeply. One of the places it irks me the most is in how certain musicians are so elitist about it. I think it's important to allow the kids to do new, cool things in music. One of the kids I really like is an artist named Netspend. I don't know how much of any of his things will be able to play without problems. Actually, I bet this might be okay because it's been taken off of everything. Yeah, it's hilarious. It has some other sample that's in it tagged there. I know a bunch of you are looking at this and immediately saying, fuck this rap shit. What is this? I hate this. And fine, whatever. If it's not for you, it's not for you. Okay. This is a 16-year-old kid that is massively innovating the space that is hip hop right now. I think he's incredible. It took a while for him to grow on me, but now he absolutely has. His previous songs were way indier. The biggest ones were like up to 100K or so plays. But this one blew up. This one got to 1 million plays surprisingly quick. And it was a huge sound change, aesthetic change, and a growing up, glowing up moment for him for sure. You might notice that this song is not on his channel. That's because it got copyright struck. And not because of anything happening in the main song, but actually because of what happens at the end here. That little guitar loop at the end there is the intro for a different song that he was going to put out later. And the guitar loop is sampled from a Deftones song from like 2004. They thought they would be able to get the sample cleared. They had a light clear, supposedly. Everything was taking forever. So Netspend just randomly dropped the song on his personal YouTube channel. It gets DMCA'd almost immediately. And not only did they take down that song, they took down this one because it included the snippet of that other song. They took his first 1 million play track away from him because they thought his usage and repurposing of a 20-year-old guitar loop in a rap song was somehow competing with their work and costing them money and business opportunity. That's fucking delusion. That is a disdain for art in progress within mediums. Just absurd. And you can say all you want, like, oh, that's the label being shitty. And I know a lot of people are going to say that, like, labels suck. I don't fucking care. The musician can stand up and say, yo, this sucks. This happened with Oliver Tree way back, where he did interviews and said that his label was being fucky with other artists using some of his stuff and how important this was to him and how frustrating it was. Deftones has been radio silent because they look down on hip hop. They look down on these other spaces, so they're assholes about it. It is what it is. They're not as bad as Metallica, who showed up to Congress with like 500 pages printed of people's names that they guessed based on IP addresses to try and sue all the people who stole their music because they opened LimeWire once. There's something about the metal scene and how it's so pretentious about how fast they can play their guitars, where they just stop caring about artistic progress. And it sucks. It sucks so hard. None of this is about copyright law and defending your copyright or you can lose it. That's not what's happening here. This is people who don't actually care getting in the way of those who do. And it's just obnoxious. And now some random re-uploaded this video and got 3.5 million plays that should be going to Netspend, should be paying Netspend, should be advancing his career, but it's being held back by people with a weak, outdated view of how music works. And these people are all over the industry. And I'll bet my ass that the first types of artists that are going to start collaborating with companies like Suno are going to be Deftones and Metallica because they see no issue with this. Insanity. Actual fucking insanity. Like just imagine being a musician who hasn't been relevant for 20 years and a kid who is 16 or 17 years old likes your stuff so much that they reference it in their work as a very small piece of their work. And your response is either to get it taken down or sit idly as it gets taken down. That's just insane to me. And this type of on one hand, this is considered theft and they can go through the DMCA process and win it. On the other hand, Suno letting you generate a song in the style of Coldplay is totally fine. Absurdity. Actually insane. And it frustrates me so much. And these are the types of people who are going to be cool with it because they're not interested in making cool music or sound. They're interested in showcasing how fast and well they can play their fucking instruments. And I just don't care. I really don't care. That's like showing off how good of a programmer you are by typing really fast. One more angle I want to talk about this with before we talk about how to fix it, and we will get to how to fix this. I just really want to talk about one more key difference between these types of media. There's two sides to creating music. There's the side of the listener who is experiencing that music and having feelings and emotions from that music. And then there's the other side, which is the vibe and feeling you get from creating it, the satisfaction you get from making a new piece of media. We can break this down to creation and consumption. When you are creating music, it gives you certain feelings, and your goal is to have the music you create give consumers of that music feelings. You can argue that writing is similar, where there is a vibe you get when you write an article or a blog post or an essay on something you care a lot about, and then there's a feeling people will get when they consume that. You can say the same about video, you can say the same about images, some amount less so. But there's a third piece here. Value. If I write a really good blog post, it might make me feel satisfied as the writer. It might make you satisfied as a person consuming it and give you some interesting information and make you feel good. But it also will help my website be placed better on Google. It has a practical value when it's being read by robots that allow for my website to perform better and have an immediate business impact for me. This is even more so the case with code. When I write code, it might make me feel pretty good and smart and awesome. Reading code doesn't really do anything for anyone. Like, it's sometimes cool to look at some code and be like, wow, that's really clever. Less so than in any of these other places, but it's still kind of a thing. But the majority of the value in code isn't from people reading it and having a feeling. You don't get value from code by consuming it. You get value from code by running it. This is one of the reasons all the work that we're putting into making LLMs great actually makes some economic sense, because the majority of the output of LLMs is never looked at by a human. The majority of the reasoning traces aren't even being passed to the user, much less seen by the user. The majority of the code being generated isn't being opened. It's being run in the background, executing tasks, or just being generated and then thrown away after the person checks the website once. The majority of content being generated by LLMs is never consumed by a human. The majority of content being generated by Suno in these music generators is consumed by one human and nothing else. There's a lot of value in the words and code and things being generated by a large language model outside of someone looking at it directly. There is no value in music generation outside of it being consumed. There is no value in image generation outside of it being consumed. And there is no value in video generation other than it being consumed. This is the problem. LLMs and things built around them are inherently way more composable, powerful, and, to be frank, exciting to me because I can see ways to use those that are really cool. Media gen stuff isn't useful outside of it being listened to or watched, and it sucks. There are places where you need to do some of this work that aren't as direct, like I am locked in paying attention. For example, a background in one of my thumbnails or some asset that's part of a poster that's being put out in the real world somewhere. Those types of things might not need the same level of detail and attention because you're not trying to invoke a feeling with every detail you're putting in the same way. You're just trying to make it look good enough. But there isn't that much of that type of stuff. especially in the music world. Like, sure, it'd be cool if like you could generate the soundtrack for a movie without having to pay a musician. But the soundtrack's one of the coolest parts of movies. Why would you automate that piece? It just feels fucking insane to me. Like, and I think this is the part that gets missed the most. LLMs can generate value outside of how they're perceived and consumed. None of the other types of media generation have this as the case. There is no value in a Suno song as soon as you've listened to it for the last time. And it also doesn't provide that same cool vibe of, oh my God, I created this thing I had in my head. Because a lot of the satisfaction on the creation side comes from the execution of a thing that you were imagining. If you're imagining an application that you wish existed and the way you want to write it, and then you go do it, you get the satisfaction for executing this vision. When you write a blog post that is a thought that you're just trying to get out of your head, you get the satisfaction of it being out of your head. When you AI generate a song with a text prompt, you're just hitting a random dice roll and hoping what comes out is cool. Nowhere near as satisfying. You can't imagine a song in your head and then get Suno to make it. You can write lyrics, maybe even hand it a MIDI track, and then it will generate whatever it feels like. But you're not steering it. You're not controlling it. You're telling it what you want and hope you're getting it back. It would be the equivalent of having an idea for a song, so you find a musician, pay the money, and say, hey, make a song that's like this, and hope that they do it roughly how you want. Just way more automated and way worse. Generating music is nothing like generating code because you can't mingle with the pieces. It's not useful outside of how it's consumed. It's nothing like sampling because you're not looking at a piece that you understand and respect and try to repurpose parts of it somewhere else. It's nothing like AI-generated blog posts because you're not getting the idea you have out and editing it to get it just right. It's someone who doesn't understand music telling their friend to go do it. It's like if I told you I want an app that's like Tinder for dogs, go make it for me, and hoping you can figure out all the pieces. It's just stupid. It doesn't work that way. It's silly. And I won't get satisfaction when you're done building it. I'll get a bill. I saw some people getting confused about my point here about the consumption thing. Is my argument that music gets consumed by humans, so it should be made by humans? No, that's not my point at all. My point is actually the opposite. Code can also be consumed by humans, but I don't care because the value in code isn't the human consuming it. The value in code is the code running and providing a service. The value in music is exclusively the listening to it. That's the only part that matters. There's no other value in music, which means if you have two AI models, one can generate text and code and one can generate music. The one that can generate text and code can make things for humans like blog posts, articles, essays, whatever else. And it can make code which no one will read and still be useful. Continuing to iterate on LLMs is valuable because the things that the LLMs generate are useful even if a human never touches it. There is zero value at all whatsoever in anything generated by a music model, an image model, or a video model outside of how it is consumed. The only value of generating a song is to listen to it. The majority of text that is generated is never consumed by a human. The majority of music that is generated is exclusively consumed by one human. That's the difference here. There is no value in this outside of the consumption side, which makes it so much more soulless. I hate shitty AI blog posts as much as the next guy, believe me, but there's a lot of value in AI generating text outside of the text that humans are reading. There is no value at all in this stuff. Sistine Chapel was commissioned by the Pope. The execution is what made it good and expanded upon what the Pope could ever possibly imagine. We credit Michelangelo for a reason. Yes. Like this analogy a lot. The Pope is not the one who created the chapel. He commissioned it. Michelangelo was the one who architected, designed it, and deserves the memory of being the one who created it. And when you use Suno, it's effectively the creators of Suno who made the song, not you. But it's not even that. Like, they're not the ones who created the sounds coming out. They trained on a bunch of media from other artists they don't necessarily have the rights to. At least they didn't, because Warner, my favorite, just formed a partnership with Suno. Yes, really. This deal brings together Suno's best-in-class AI capabilities with WMG's artist development, leadership, and expertise at the intersection of music and technology. The deal also settles previous litigation between the companies. Something important to know is that Warner and other music labels will always hunt for ways to take giant amounts of money from big companies like Suno, like Facebook, which we'll talk about in just a sec, and also to take money from their own artists. I promise you, there is effectively $0 going from Suno to the artists on Warner. This is an agreement between Warner the business, Warner the legal team, and Suno the startup that's worth too much money. I have way too much inside info on how all of this works. It's something someone just touched on it in chat. Twitch is another example of the DJ thing. You have no idea. I wrote the spec for the original Twitch music product. I was so deep on the ground floor there. I know way too much about how all this works. And there was one deal that fucked up everything for everyone. Back in 2018, Facebook and Warner Music Inc. recorded and published music deal for videos and messages. In the mid to late 2010s, all the music labels realized that they can't get rid of YouTube and Twitter and Facebook and all these services. So instead of trying to do that, they could maybe charge them. So they went to all of them and tried to ink out deals so that they could be paid whenever one of their songs is played on YouTube. But in reality, what it did is if you accidentally play 15 seconds of a song inside of a 3-hour video, all the revenue now goes to Warner. Great. Awesome. If that was all that it did wrong, that would be fine. But this is the deal where everything fell apart. Facebook wanted to go harder on video on Facebook.com. They wanted to compete with Vine and YouTube more actively. They were also trying to compete with Twitch, if you remember the Facebook gaming days. Good times. They were already starting to get sued by Warner for random 30-second clips that had a song playing in the background. Facebook had a lot of money. They didn't want any of this to get in their way. So they did a thing that inadvertently fucked up the entire music industry and its relationship with technology. They paid Warner around $1 billion for a blanket use our stuff wherever you feel like license so that Warner wouldn't sue them and they could just use the stuff without having to pay based on viewership. With YouTube, every view that can be accredited to a Warner Music license results in money going to Warner. On Facebook, none of it mattered, which is actually quite helpful because at the time, Facebook was artificially inflating view counts, so it would have fucked them if they were to pay per view. They inked this flat rate because they didn't want to deal with this all. And then they proceeded to do literally nothing with it. The assumption was that this would allow for all new types of music creation and music creators to be successful on Facebook. Maybe people will live stream DJ sets. Maybe they'll do dance videos. Maybe they'll do all these different things. And it never happened. But since Facebook paid billions of dollars for this license and then never used it, it set a standard that Warner's been trying to maintain since, which is that the sheer concept of accessing their IP is worth billions of dollars. So that's what they should charge. And when the numbers were coming to Twitch about how much money a similar deal would cost, Twitch was already in the negative. They would have put Twitch much, much deeper in the negative, hilariously so. And Twitch's workaround was beautiful. The solution we came up with was that radio licensing was very different from on-demand licensing. If you can go click a video and hear a song, that's arguably a market replacement for going and paying for the song and access to it. But if you're listening to the radio and I play a song you like and you want to go listen again, you can't make me play it again on the radio. You have to go find and pay for the song. So generally speaking, live music broadcast has more lenient rules around copyright. On top of that, live music broadcast is way harder to police because you'd have to have listeners and feelers out on every single live stream ever in hopes that you can find one that's violating your copyright to a couple dozen people. The amount of cost for ingest and identifying those violations relative to the amount of money you can make from it is just so far off reality that none of the companies would do it. What they would do instead is wait till the stream was done and then check the VOD looking for signatures played back at 500x speeds, which is significantly cheaper. So Twitch's solution was great. We introduced 2 audio tracks. One that is the general stream audio and a separate track that includes music and other copyrighted media. And then when the stream is done, we don't save the second audio track. We only save the first one. So you might have noticed creators like Primogen stream with music playing, and then when you go watch the VOD, the music's gone. That's because he streams the music to that second track, which makes it effectively impossible for you to be DMCA'd for playing music live on Twitch if you're using the 2 channels properly. This is a technical workaround of a legal consideration to deal with the bullshit that is all of this music licensing stuff. If I had to sit here and tell you who is more evil, Suno or Warner, I would genuinely struggle. All of these people are evil. All of them suck. None of them care about music or media, and neither of them are going to ever meaningfully pay artists what they deserve. Suno is the new Warner, and rather than let Suno beat Warner, they are partnering up. This makes me sick. With all of this said, I have a little bit of hope. Let's talk about how this can all be saved. How can we make media gen tools and technologies actually useful to professionals? I have 2 examples I want to show you guys. These examples come from the toolbox conversation earlier. Is the tool living outside of the box trying to replace it, or is the tool yet another tool that goes inside of your toolbox and makes you more productive as a professional? The majority of these AI tools I've seen are trying to replace the toolbox, and they all suck. But there have been a few that are working around it and trying to make useful tools within the toolbox instead. One of them is a company I recently invested in, Co-Create. Co-Create is trying to augment video production. They're not trying to do AI video generation. They're trying to use AI to help professional video teams get the bullshit out of the way faster. Traditional video editing software demands hours of manual work, sorting clips, syncing audio, and building rough cuts. That's why most creators spend more time organizing than actually creating. Co-Create is a professional-first video editing tool that automates the technical grind, letting you focus on storytelling, creative direction, and making content that connects. It's built to automate the ingest and organization step in professional video editing software. When a team records dozens of hours of footage and they want to use it for 2 to 5 minute video, even just sorting all of the footage is obnoxious, much less getting it into the right place in the editor so you could start doing the work. And then you realize you need to sync audio from another file from another person's computer. It's obnoxious once you're working on these bigger video production teams. There's a whole role category called assistant editor, who are people that hope to be a real editor someday, and they're in the industry, is to just sit there and organize files for the lead editor. There's often 3 to 5 of these assistant editors for the one main editor doing the actual work of chopping inside of the video editing software. Automating this is something that I'm actually quite excited about. I don't know how big the market will be, but I'm hyped somebody is doing it. They're going to actual professional video studios, sitting on the floor, watching what works, watching what's frustrating, watching what's blocking them, and then trying to build what's necessary to automate those tedious parts. That's great. They're trying to fit in the toolbox. They're not trying to replace it, because replacing it's fucking stupid. And now, one more tangent to one of my favorite human beings, Daddy Kev. Kev is a legendary record producer and audio engineer. He has been mixing and mastering for decades now. Many of my favorite records were mixed by Kev. Almost every Flying Lotus release, a ton of Daedalus, Bus Driver, No Such Thing, Sam I Am, and more. And that's just 2000s. In the 2010s, he really popped off, working on Bath's album Cerulean, which was groundbreaking at the time. I still love that album. A bunch of my favorite John Wayne stuff, both Stayed 2 and Stayed 3 by Mr. Wazo. Incredible projects. I have both of those on vinyl. Thundercat, who blew up soon after that point. Igloo Ghost, who I also love dearly. This one DJ PayPal project that's been entirely forgotten to time, even though it's fucking incredible. I love him so much. And so many more things. You can just scroll here and see stuff that you're into American hip hop or experimental electronic music at all, you've listened to multiple things in this list for sure. Like almost certainly. He knows his way around production. He knows his way around audio engineering, mixing, mastering, all of these things. Out of curiosity, he started to play with AI stuff to see how it would handle mixing by giving it a song and asking it, what would you change? And the suggestions that it made were better than he expected. There was no way for the AI to actually do the things that it was suggesting, but it would suggest decent things. And then when he looked at what all the AI media companies were doing and saw they were trying to replace the whole process, not augment the part that he was focused on, he decided he wanted to fix that. Despite the fact that this man recently turned 50, he decided he wanted to do this. He wanted to figure this out. So he started learning how to code so that he could build the thing he wants. And this is where my super spicy take comes in. Developers are too fucking stupid to learn about an industry they don't care about. Learning how to code is way easier than building an appreciation of the depth of the music industry. I have way more faith that Daddy Kev here can teach himself enough about code to make something incredible than I have that a bunch of tech bros can make actually useful tools for professional media creators. It's just laughable for me to think of like a tech bro understanding musicians better than Kev does. That's not a real world we live in. And that's why I think his current project, DDEX Suite, is so cool. It's an XML builder and parser for music DDEX files. It's a common format for music production software. He wants to parse that data and use it for all sorts of different things. So he wrote a Rust core that works with Rust, of course, but also TypeScript, JS, and Python so that people can use this to screw with those files. And it's super, super cool. This is also kind of his learning project. He's doing this to better deepen his knowledge of software development and figure out where he can sneak in to build the things he wishes existed. This is so damn cool. And the moment he tells me he wants to go all in on it and raise money, I'm going to write him quite the check, because an expert in a field learning to code will perform significantly better than an expert at code learning a field. Always. And this is how we win. We need to stop being distracted by these tech bros pretending they can automate the field, because they can't. They don't understand it. That's not how this works. They can't just show up not understanding music and replace it. We need to use this stuff to make better tools and to build things within our existing toolboxes that make us more productive as creators. Things like better captioning systems in our video editors, things like background removal in our image editors, things like shirt swapping, face swapping, and all those fun things in Photoshop, things like sample creators, loop creators, EQ tooling, and all this stuff in our music software. There's so much cool stuff that can happen within our tools if they are built to take advantage of the AI revolution happening right now. But instead, we're being told that we'll all be replaced because everyone will be a musician in no time. Hopefully this helps you better understand where I sit in this space. I think replacing our toolboxes with AI is cringe as fuck. I think people becoming creators because of AI instead of doing it because they actually care about the thing is cringe as fuck. If somebody gets into creating music or games or videos or something because AI made it slightly easier, then they got frustrated when and learned the real thing, that's kind of cool. That's the only upside I can think of, is somebody trying to make their first ever song with Suno, realizing how cringe it is, and then going to learn to produce. That's cool, I guess. But like on this spectrum where on one side we have code and on the other side we have video gen, pretty much everything past image gen stops being useful in my opinion, because it's so much harder to do anything with. Credit where it's due, I know Suno's trying to make a more studio-like product where instead of it just generating the whole song, it will generate stems and let you work with them and organize them in a really crappy web app. Cool. Better than what they were doing before. And if I can use this to just generate a stem or like create 15 unique samples and pick one of the ones I like to go use in my real editor, maybe cool. Maybe. But man, this just ain't it. I wish I felt differently. I do genuinely wish I saw more going on in the space that gave me hope that they're not just going to try and replace our toolboxes and the humans that make these things. But that's not what they're doing. They're not trying to make our jobs easier. They're claiming that our whole fields are stupid and they can automate it. And that's dumb. I got nothing else on this one. Let me know in the comments if I'm insane and just a hater or if I'm kind of making good points here. Curious how y'all feel, and I'm sure that I'm not going to get flamed a ton for this. And until next time, peace nerds.